Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. My phone buzzed in the middle of my shift at the warehouse, right as I was moving pallets with the forklift. Normally, I don't even check my phone when I'm working, but this time it wouldn't stop ringing. When I finally pulled it out of my pocket, I saw an unknown number. Something told me to answer, and the second I put it to my ear, my entire world tilted. "Sir, this is Officer Daniels. You need to come home immediately." My heart nearly stopped. Is something wrong? What happened? My wife? My kids? Please tell me what's going on. The officer's tone was urgent but restrained. "Your wife's boyfriend is in your daughter's room. I can't say more over the phone, but you'll see for yourself. Please hurry." Boyfriend. Daughter's room. I swear time slowed down. My chest felt like someone had shoved a block of ice into it, and for a second I couldn't breathe. My wife had a boyfriend? And he was in my daughter's room? The words didn't even make sense together, but my instincts screamed at me that I couldn't waste another second. I dropped everything. Didn't even bother telling my supervisor I was leaving. I just threw off my gloves, bolted out of the warehouse, and jumped into my truck. My hands were trembling so badly that I almost dropped the keys, and when I finally jammed them into the ignition, I floored it out of the parking lot like a madman. Every red light felt like a curse. Every slow driver in front of me was the enemy. My mind spun with images I couldn't control. My daughter crying, some stranger in her room, my wife standing by doing nothing. Or worse, encouraging it. The rage inside me built with every passing second until it was boiling over. When I turned onto my street, my stomach dropped. My house wasn't just lit up, it was surrounded. There were 3 squad cars parked outside, their red and blue lights flickering across the front lawn. Neighbors were already gathering on their porches, whispering, staring, waiting for the drama to unfold. I slammed my truck into park, barely remembering to kill the engine before I jumped out. My boots hit the pavement hard as I sprinted toward the front door, but before I could push past the cops, one of them raised his hand. "Sir, wait. We need you calm before you go in there." "Calm?" I barked, my voice breaking from the force of my anger. "My daughter is in there with some sick man and you want me to be calm? Move out of my way." The officer hesitated, then finally stepped aside, but followed me close, his hand near his holster in case I lost control. Inside, the house was chaos. I could hear shouting upstairs, 2 male voices, one of them panicked, the other angry. My wife's voice cut through, high-pitched and frantic, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. The sound drove me insane. I bolted up the stairs, cops on my heels. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. At the top of the stairs, I reached for my waistband almost on instinct, and that's when my hand wrapped around cold steel, my magnum. I hadn't even realized I'd grabbed it from the truck in my rush. I pulled it free, the weight grounding me in a way, focusing all my fury into one single thought: protect my daughter. When I stormed into her room, everything froze. My wife stood in the corner, wringing her hands. A man I didn't recognize, mid-30s, scruffy beard, smug face, was standing far too close to my daughter's bed. My little girl was curled up on the edge, clutching her stuffed animal, eyes red and swollen from crying. That image broke me. "Step away from her," I growled, raising the magnum. The man sneered like I was some kind of joke. "You don't understand. I said step away." My voice thundered, rattling the windows. Cops immediately shouted behind me. "Put the gun down, sir. Put it down now." But my eyes never left him. My finger itched on the trigger. Every fiber of my being wanted to end him right there. I'd never felt such pure rage in my life, and then, my wife screamed. "Don't hurt him," she cried, throwing herself halfway in front of him. That single act hit me harder than anything else. She wasn't protecting our daughter. She was protecting him. My stomach churned. My rage shifted. And in that moment, the nightmare truly began. The room seemed to shrink in on me, my daughter's terrified eyes boring into my soul while my wife clung to that man like he was worth protecting. My hands shook, the magnum heavy in my grip, the barrel steady though my heart wasn't. "Sir, drop the weapon now!" The officer behind me barked again, his voice tense. I didn't move. I couldn't. Not with that man standing just a step away from my daughter's bed. And then my daughter whispered, her voice trembling, "Daddy, That was all it took. Reality slammed into me. If I pulled the trigger with her sitting right there, she'd never look at me the same again. I'd lose her forever, not because of him or my wife, but because of my own rage. I let out a sharp breath, my hand tightening one last time around the grip before I slowly lowered the magnum. The cops moved in instantly, rushing past me, one grabbing the boyfriend and shoving him against the wall while the other pulled my wife away, still screeching like she was the victim. "Hey, don't touch him! He didn't do anything wrong!" she shouted. The words cut deep. Didn't do anything wrong? He was in my daughter's room, at night, without me home. The officer cuffed him as he protested, spitting out excuses. "It's not like that. She invited me over." "Shut up," the cop snapped, tightening the cuffs. "You'll explain downtown." I rushed to my daughter and pulled her into my arms. She clung to me like I was the only safe thing in the world. Her little body trembled against mine, and I promised myself right then and there I would never let anyone hurt her again. But my wife. When I looked up, she was glaring at me as if I'd ruined her perfect little plan. "You didn't have to overreact," she hissed, her voice low enough so only I could hear. "You're embarrassing us. Do you realize what the neighbors must think?" Embarrassing us. Not a single word about our daughter, not a single ounce of shame or guilt. Just embarrassment. I couldn't even speak to her. My rage was too sharp, my disappointment too heavy. The police escorted her boyfriend out, the neighbors whispering from their porches as he was shoved into the back of a squad car. My wife tried to chase after him, but an officer held her back. The sight made bile rise in my throat. She wasn't chasing after our daughter's safety, she was chasing after him. That night, after the cops finally left and my daughter was tucked into bed beside me for safety, my wife tried to corner me in the kitchen. "You overdid it," she spat, crossing her arms. "It wasn't what you thought. You always assume the worst about me." I stared at her in disbelief. "The police called me at work to tell me your boyfriend was in our daughter's room. Explain to me how I'm supposed to assume anything else." Her face twisted into something cold. "It's not cheating. It's an open marriage. Be thankful I haven't left you yet. You should just accept it." I blinked at her, stunned. "Open marriage? Since when? Because I don't remember ever agreeing to that." She shrugged, her tone mocking. "You don't need to agree. That's how it is. You're boring, predictable, and I deserve to feel desirable. He gives me that. If you can't handle it, that's your problem." The words didn't just hurt. They shattered something in me. I realized in that moment the woman I married was gone. Whatever love we'd shared had been replaced by entitlement, arrogance, and selfishness. I said nothing more to her that night, but inside, a decision was already taking shape. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I called my supervisor, said there was a family emergency, and then I spent the entire day making phone calls, checking accounts, and quietly setting things in motion. My wife thought she'd humiliated me. She thought I'd roll over, accept whatever crumbs of marriage she was willing to leave me. She had no idea what storm was about to hit her. Gaines leverage with custody case. When I woke up the next morning, my daughter was curled up beside me, her little hand clutching my shirt like she was afraid I'd vanish in the night. That single detail reminded me exactly what mattered. Not my pride, not my rage, not even the broken marriage lying in ashes. Her. She was the reason I had to stay focused. I kissed the top of her head, slipped out of bed, and quietly made coffee. My wife was already at the kitchen table scrolling her phone, smirking like nothing had happened the night before. "You know, you really embarrassed yourself," she said without even looking up. "Screaming in front of the neighbors, pulling a gun. Do you know how crazy you looked?" I stared at her for a long moment, then I smiled, not because it was funny, but because something inside me had gone cold. "You're right," I said softly. "I looked crazy." And I walked away. What she didn't realize was that my silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. I'd learned long ago that rage burns hot but burns out fast. Patience, on the other hand, is a slow fire that leaves nothing standing. That day I called a lawyer. I didn't file for divorce immediately. I wasn't stupid. I wanted every duck in a row first, but I sat across from that lawyer and told him everything. The affair, the police report, the danger to my daughter. His eyebrows rose higher with each detail, and by the end he said, "If what you're saying is true, and if you can back it with evidence, you'll not only win full custody, you'll leave her with nothing." That was all I needed to hear. I spent the next weeks quietly building my case. While she was out working late with her boss, funny how her boss and her boyfriend were sometimes the same person, I combed through phone bills, bank statements, credit card charges. I saved text screenshots, voicemail recordings, even the security camera footage from the night the police dragged him out of my house. Piece by piece, the puzzle of her betrayal came together. But it wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about ensuring my daughter never had to live under the same roof as that toxic mess again. At night, when the house was quiet, I'd sit in the living room with the lights off and think back to the beginning. The early days of our marriage. The way she used to look at me with love in her eyes, the way we used to laugh over burned dinners, or how excited she'd been when we bought this house together. Those memories hurt the most, not because they were gone, but because she'd chosen to burn them for the thrill of being desirable to someone else. Weeks passed, and she grew bolder. One evening, I came home from work and found the boyfriend's car parked in the driveway again. My stomach tightened, but I said nothing. Instead, I quietly parked down the street and called my lawyer. "She's violating the temporary restraining order against bringing him near your daughter," he said. "If you can document it, this is even stronger for your case." So I took pictures, I recorded timestamps, I let her hang herself with her own rope. Inside, she was laughing with him, pouring wine, acting like our home was some playground for her games. When she saw me walk in, she gave me a mocking smile. "Relax," she said, draping herself on the couch. "This is how it's going to be now. You can either accept it, or you can leave. But either way, I'm not giving up what makes me happy." I didn't answer. I just walked past her, went to my daughter's room, and made sure she was safe. Every time my wife tried to provoke me, I refused to give her the satisfaction. That infuriated her more than yelling ever could. She wanted a fight. She wanted me to break down, to prove her right about me being boring and predictable. Instead, I was calm, dangerously calm. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the wheels of revenge were spinning. I moved my paycheck into a separate account she couldn't touch. I quietly transferred the deed of the house into a trust with my daughter's name on it. I changed passwords, secured insurance policies, and set everything up so that when the hammer dropped, she wouldn't even see it coming. The day finally came when my lawyer called. "Everything's ready," he said. "The paperwork is airtight. You can file now. Once she's served, she won't be able to touch a cent without a fight. And based on what you've given me, she won't win that fight." I hung up the phone and looked around the house. The walls that once echoed with laughter now felt like hollow reminders of betrayal. But soon this place would be mine and my daughter's again. Clean, safe, free of her poison. That evening my wife waltzed in late, smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. She tossed her purse on the counter and smirked at me. "You're still here? I figured you'd get tired of this by now," she said mockingly. I smiled faintly. "Don't worry, I won't be here much longer." She laughed like it was a joke, completely unaware of what was about to happen. 2 days later, she was served. The look on her face when she realized what those papers meant. That was the first taste of justice. But it wasn't the end, not even close. Because while she was scrambling, calling me names, threatening me, insisting I'd regret it, she had no idea that her perfect little life was about to crumble in ways she couldn't imagine. And I was going to be there for every second of it. I remember the way she looked at me when the papers were finally served. Her face drained of all color, like the blood itself had betrayed her and walked away. For the first time, she realized I wasn't bluffing, I wasn't threatening, I wasn't playing the role of the heartbroken husband. I was simply done. But that was only the beginning. Because when you live with betrayal, you learn very quickly that endings don't come neatly wrapped in bows. They come through processes, legal, emotional, and sometimes brutally practical. And I was ready for all of it. The next few weeks felt like a storm. Court dates, lawyers, custody evaluations. Every part of my life suddenly revolved around depositions and documentation. She tried everything to twist the story, to make herself appear like a victim. "He's controlling," she told the court. "He's bitter. He's punishing me." But the evidence spoke louder than her carefully rehearsed lies. Text messages, call records, her boyfriend being caught red-handed in our home. It was all there in black and white. And the moment my lawyer pulled out the police report about her boyfriend being in my daughter's room, the room fell completely silent. Even her own lawyer didn't know where to look. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make speeches. I let the truth crush her under its own weight. The judge looked at me with something I can only describe as quiet respect. "Sir, based on the evidence provided, temporary custody of your daughter is granted to you, pending full evaluation. Your wife's contact will be supervised." I wanted to laugh, cry, scream, all at once, but I didn't. I just nodded. It wasn't victory. Not yet. But it was the beginning of it. At home, my daughter hugged me tighter than she ever had before. "Dad, please don't let her take me away again." Her little voice broke me, but I promised, "Never again. You're safe now. Always." Meanwhile, her so-called lover, the man she'd risked her marriage and family for, began unraveling too. His wife found out everything. She filed for her own divorce, and his career took a nosedive when word spread at his company. Rumors like that don't just fade away. They cling, they poison, and they rot reputations from the inside out. He started avoiding my wife, ignoring her calls, and eventually blocked her number. Just like that, the upgrade she thought she was making turned into a downgrade so severe it was almost poetic. She was left alone, penniless, and scrambling. She called me dozens of times, left voicemails dripping with desperation. "Please, can we talk? For the kids. For us. I made a mistake. You're a good man, the best man I've ever known. Please don't do this to me." But I had already done it, and I wasn't going back. The final hearing came, and the custody ruling was made permanent. Full custody awarded to me. She was granted visitation rights, but only under strict supervision. When the ruling was read, she sobbed uncontrollably in the courtroom, her mother trying to comfort her while casting hateful glares in my direction. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered every sleepless night I'd spent wondering how long she had been betraying me. I remembered the phone call that nearly made me collapse on the spot. I remembered the fear in my daughter's eyes. No, pity had no place here. Life slowly began to rebuild itself. I poured myself into being the best father I could be. I found a routine again. Work, home, bedtime stories, laughter filling the walls that once echoed with lies. And with every day that passed, I felt lighter. One evening, months later, I was sitting on the porch, watching my daughter ride her bike down the street, her laughter cutting through the golden light of sunset. That's when my phone buzzed. Another message from her. "I'm sorry. I'll never stop loving you. Can we just start over? Please?" I didn't reply. I didn't even delete it. I just let it sit there, unread, like a piece of trash you don't bother picking up. Because by then, the most powerful revenge had already been achieved. She had destroyed herself. And I had rebuilt. The true look on her face, the one that told me everything I needed to know, wasn't in the courtroom or during the fights. It was the day she came by, months later, thinking she could just drop in during her supervised visit. She saw the house freshly painted, new furniture, my daughter smiling ear to ear, and, yes, someone new sitting on the porch with me. A friend, not yet a lover, but someone who filled the air with warmth and possibility. Her eyes widened, her lips trembled. That was it, that was the look. She realized she wasn't just erased from my life, she was replaced. And that, after everything, was the sweetest revenge of all.